5.
Curry hits a three.
4.
Houston with a try. Deep left field.
3.
Patrick hit by Watt. Sack number 10.
2.
Messi with a record-breaking goal.
1.
Welcome to BSS Sports. Now, here are your hosts, Steve and Trevor.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of BSS Sports. My name is Steve Schill with the ever lovely Trevor Struthers. We're talking NFL, we're talking TFC clinching a playoff spot, and of course we're talking Blue Jays. What a miserable show that has been. Kicking things off to another miserable start for an unlikely team, the New England Patriots, losing to the Kansas City Chiefs 42-27. I mean, first regular season game, we're kicking things off. It's high scoring, it's energetic, it's the Patriots. I don't really recall if the winner always plays the first game, but I mean, it was a good matchup. But the Patriots weren't able to do their offensive onslaught, and for once the Patriots defense looks really, really shaky, or are things changing and Alex Smith is going to be the MVP of 2017-2018 NFL regular season.
Yeah, everybody now all of a sudden is rushing on their fantasy team to try to get Alex Smith at quarterback because, I mean, obviously, depending on how deep your league is, you probably didn't have him on your roster. But, yeah, that was his best fantasy output of 31 points or something. Probably one of the best games of his career, especially considering who he was doing it against. I mean, yeah, the main takeaway from that game, I mean, even more so than Brady, obviously, because Brady didn't have a bad game. The stats were probably changed a little bit. He was sacked there at that last series at the end of the game where they were kind of already out of it deep in their own end. And but yeah, the defense for the Patriots has to be the real story of that game. I mean, a Belichick Patriots team has not given up as many points as they did on Thursday. That's just a fact. And it's crazy to think about, and this is only week one, and you do start to wonder. I mean, hey, it was a couple of years ago when Brady got hurt and was out for the season. Who are they playing? It just so happened to be the Chiefs, funny enough. But maybe there's a little bit of doubt now in Patriots land. You know, you had a lot of people talking about, hey, they're the defending Super Bowl champions. Can they maybe run the table this year? There are obviously a lot of returning players. The same core, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick. Can they do it again? Or can they come close to – I mean, obviously they had 1 year where they were 1 win shy of a perfect season. Can they do something and replicate that this year? And the NFL Network had a segment. They had them at 8-0 going into their bye week. They have a perfect schedule in that sense where it's 8 games, bye week, 8 games. But, yeah, they can't seem to go over that first huddle. That's the Kansas City Chiefs. And, boy, do they deserve all the credit in the world. And how about Hunt, the running back, Kareem Hunt? Man, the first time he touches that football in the NFL, he fumbles after not fumbling at all in college. His last fumble before that was in high school. And wouldn't you know it, he goes on to have, it was 3 touchdowns and put up basically nearly 40 fantasy points in basically every league. Had a coming out party for sure. And, yeah, he's going to be a guy that you do wonder if he's able to continue it, right? Because the Patriots defense, I mean, they're usually pretty dang solid, right? But, I mean, they obviously had an off day. So that's definitely something to watch. Could Hunt be the Ezekiel Elliott of this season in the NFL?
I just hated the whole conversation of, oh my God, they're going to go undefeated. We haven't started the season. The likelihood of that happening is pretty slim, but hey, if that's what floats your boat, you do you. So, one team, not going undefeated this year. Starting off strong, but I can probably guarantee that, if that's a thing. I almost said the St. Louis Ram. It's the LA Rams, and Jared Goff. Beating the Andrew Luckless Indianapolis Colts 49-9. To mention first off, Andrew Luck had shoulder surgery in the offseason, being told by many people, at the time, that he was going to be ready for the regular season. Obviously, it's regular season, and from all reports, he hasn't even practiced yet. Now, on the flip side, for the LA Rams, Jared Goff, last year, there was so much hustle and so much talk, and I was one of the people that were like, come on, play this guy, kind of like Philadelphia did with Carson Wentz. And with Jared Goff in LA, they said, no, we're going to make sure that he's comfortable with the system and kind of give him a year to very, very, very slowly progress into the role and then take over for the following year, which obviously it's the following year now, and putting up 49 points on the board. And, I mean, Andrew Luck is the all-star name here for the Colts, but Andrew Luck plays on the offense. So, Jared Goff doing pretty damn good for the Rams. Trev, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, really, you could say it was a coming out party of sorts. I believe it's his first one in the NFL because I think they had a pretty bad season last year to the point where he didn't actually.
Brutal.
Yeah, I mean, but now right here coming out of the gate, I mean, it's huge to get it in week 1 too, right? Because this is when all of a sudden you can. I mean, hey, maybe the Rams can be that team that somehow goes undefeated. It's obviously not going to happen, but I mean, that's the thing about winning that first game is you can start to dream, start to think about what if, and yeah, for Jared Goff, I mean, obviously being now into his sophomore season, basically, that's something you got to watch. That the confidence doesn't get too big after a game like this. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to do, and the Rams, in a way, they kind of overperformed. I mean, last year we talked about just how horrid their season is. I mean, Todd Gurley had a bit of a turnaround game for him. He had 40 yards on 19 carries and a touchdown. So, I mean, he didn't necessarily have a horrible day either. They were clicking offensively against an Indianapolis team that is pretty worn out and literally could not get anything going without Andrew Luck, which is something to be concerned about if this is going to be a long-term thing for the Colts.
Now, switching over to San Francisco, the 49ers. God damn it, why do we suck? Why do we suck? Okay, 23-3 against the Carolina Panthers, and it's one team that I always... There's a rivalry there, and it bothers me when we don't win, and this one bothered me beyond belief. Just a very uneventful, not good. Why do we sign Brian Hoyer? I couldn't tell you, but they did. And I guess more than the game, I kind of want to talk about the 49ers in recent years. And relating back to the Colin Kaepernick, all the talk is right now is, okay, he's not standing for the anthem, he's not signed, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, who cares? Not that. Back a few years ago, he was in the Super Bowl, and the year before that, he was like in the conference finals or whatever the heck you call it in the NFL. Too many sports to think of. But the point is, this guy was able to bring the 49ers deep in the playoffs 2 years in a row, one of them being the Super Bowl, and the year against the Ravens when the lights went out and that whole ordeal happened. But the big thing is, looking back, what did they really lose? So they lost Patrick Willis, which is one of their linebackers. They lost Michael Crabtree, which is a wide receiver, and Justin Smith, who was one of their defensive linemen, and obviously a big name. And all those guys are, very good players. But, I mean, if you don't know who Michael Crabtree is, if you remember, what in the world is his name? Richard Sherman doing the whole, don't ever put me against a sorry receiver like Crabtree. That's him. But anyway. So the big point here is Colin Kaepernick. What happened from the point of where he went deep in the playoffs 2 years in a row to suddenly not having a team to be with and just the 49ers as a whole being terrible?
Yeah, well, with the Colin Kaepernick thing, I mean, can you seriously, look at me, and I know we're not face-to-face right now, but can you seriously look at me and tell me he's not a top 30 quarterback in the NFL right now?
Well, that's the thing. It's like, okay, he's had a rocky road every once in a while, but so does everybody. Todd Gurley, the LA Rams, fantastic season 2 years ago. Last year, he was a pile of garbage. Smoking garbage, if you will. Anybody in fantasy hated the guy. But, I mean, today, he did well. We talked about it before the show. But Kaepernick, for whatever reason, and the topics of saying, okay, he's not getting signed because of the whole kneeling thing is starting to look more accurate, and I never really thought that was an issue, but to a point, when you're looking at it from that perspective, this might be the case for kneeling, which I get the anthem. I know, I get it, but again, for a sport that is generally all about money, what in the world is going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ridiculous. And I mean, who knows contract-wise, how much money in term Kaepernick may want. I mean, this is a guy that we've talked about played in a Super Bowl, so it's not like he's an absolute nobody. But, I mean, with that being said, yeah, I mean, he hasn't exactly had the greatest time on the field either. But, I mean, you look around at some of the starting quarterbacks in the league, and, I mean, the situation going on in Houston, and yesterday, I mean, they switch out Tom Savage. I mean, they could really use a Colin Kaepernick, couldn't they? But would they be willing to go out and take a guy that started this whole movement with the kneeling during the anthem? I mean, all of a sudden you're taking on this thing that the owners look at as a distraction, and it's something a lot of people don't want to do. I mean, you mentioned it's starting to seem like this Kaepernick kneeling thing may be the issue why he's not on an NFL team. I think it's been looking like this pretty clearly for a while now, because this is a guy that is definitely a top 30 quarterback in the NFL. If you just look around at the league and in some situations, but nobody wants to take a chance on the guy. Exactly.
Brian Hoyer. I'm so done with the way that the NFL has been handling certain things, teams, owners. I think this year one of the things they changed, which I was like, okay, cool, was the celebration at the end of a touchdown. Okay, now generally speaking, NFL games aren't usually high scoring. Sometimes you get lucky. But again, it's dependent on how many touchdowns there is versus field goals. But when the touchdowns happen, it's cool. It's awesome to see the celebrations. They do it in soccer, and I'm glad they're finally like kind of easing up on that in the NFL. And I always thought that was a really like unneeded rule in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it's now called the No Fun League by some people for a reason, and I mean, they enjoyed to do that. And I mean, now just going back to even all the talk of suspensions and such, I mean, you have the Ezekiel Elliott thing. He ends up playing last night in a big game for Dallas to open up their season. But this whole appeal thing and whether or not, I mean, obviously the judge ruled inside of Ezekiel that it wasn't a fair suspension or it wasn't a fair ruling on the part of the league. And then, I mean, I'm blanking on the guy's name, but they handed down like 6 extra games of a suspension for a domestic abuse incident for a kicker that used to kick for the Giants that's not currently on an active team. Like, what's going on here with the league? In some instances, I mean, considering this is the biggest league in North American professional sports, it's pretty crazy to think about some of the things here that are going on with this league and how they're trying to control it.
Okay, you mentioned kicker there, so I got to bring this up. Do you know who Roberto Aguayo is, Trevor?
You may have brought him up a time or two, yes.
Okay, so he was the Buccaneers kicker, ruined the season last year, multiple occasions, just a brutal guy. We took him in like the second or third round of the draft, and like one of the highest kickers ever taken. And he was awful this year, last year. So they cut him this year. They released the film because they were doing one of those like Hard Knock Lights or whatever in the world it was for like HBC or one of them TV stations. And then
HBO?
Yeah, that one. And he gets picked up by the Chicago Bears. And then the Bears fire him, like, probably a few days later. And then there was this video. I can't tell if this is fake, and I don't know if you've seen it. But there was a video of after he got released from the Bears, leaving the facility, but, like, he was kind of going, like, pretty fast. And he didn't realize it was, like, one of those, you know, like, hotel circular doors that you had to go through. So he tries to go through the side window, which is a full window, runs through it, breaks the entire thing, looks like he's robbing the place, but just gets covered in shattered glass after getting fired twice in the same week. I thought it was hilarious. Moving on to soccer. Toronto FC clinching a playoff berth, winning 4-0 over the San Jose Earthquake, and now they are leading MLS in points with 59. If you're flipping things over to the Western Conference, nobody has even reached 45 points on the season. And one of those things, it's kind of maybe that the Eastern Conference is, way easier, and the Western teams are more in contention, so they're a lot closer in the way that they play. But for whatever reason, it seems to be that across all leagues. Now, something that I have a bit of beef with, if you will, is that when you type in MLS on Google, Trevor, do you know what you get when you type in MLS?
I'm guessing it's not Major League Soccer.
It's some stupid real estate agent business that has nothing to do with soccer, but the top-tier soccer league in North America is called MLS. But for whatever reason, this real estate company can pull more money or at least get their link up higher for people that Google MLS. Try it out. Let me know. I find it weird. Final note. Trevor, have you been to a Blue Jays game this year?
I have not. I've stayed away.
2 years ago, we were at the same Jays game. I don't know if you remember that. That was a good time.
That was a crazy game.
It was insane. It was Kansas City. It was the Blue Jays. Things were, violent. We were in the playoff race. It was a take me out to the ballpark kind of day, kind of year. And this year, we got nothing but misery and sorrow and hate. Jose Bautista's doing awful. Josh Donaldson isn't the MVP that he was. We're just everything is going downhill for the Blue Jays. And for whatever reason, the only bright spot seems to be Roberto Osuna. And for whatever reason, he seems to be the headline every single day. What is going on with Osuna?
Well, either he's in the job, or he's in the game finishing off a job and getting the win, or he's blowing a save. And he's got, what now, like 10 blown saves on the season, somewhere around there. But, for the most part, this is a guy that is also breaking records for a closer being as young as he is as well, right? So it's kind of, we've seen both sides of him a lot this season. I do want to say, certainly it's been an awful year for the Blue Jays, but, after a couple of years, it's almost like you're due for a bad year. And maybe it's a sign that, hey, maybe the Blue Jays don't need to rebuild per se, but need to retool and bring in some new bodies to replace older, dying off bodies, so to speak, like a Jose Bautista. But, hey, when you have a young core, especially pitching-wise, like you do with a Sanchez, a Stroman, and an Osuna, whether they end up leaving him in the bullpen or bringing him into the rotation. And then, Joe Biagini, a lot of people feel like this guy popped out of nowhere. I'm not sure exactly what his current age is, but Joe Biagini was a guy that the Blue Jays literally stole from the Giants organization in the Rule 5 draft because the Giants didn't want to give him a shot in their organization. And Joe Biagini's been the guy that's also been we've seen the good side and the bad side of Joe Biagini. People just recently were wondering, we're saying that Joe Biagini should no longer be in that starting rotation, and then he goes out and delivers a sparkling performance, and you start to rethink that a little bit. And he's a guy that we've seen be fantastic at times in the rotation and be fantastic at times in the bullpen, and so they have some real key pieces here moving forward. You just hope that Devin Travis could maybe stay healthy for a longer period of time, because he's a young guy that could use in the future, and Aaron Sanchez hopefully eventually gets this blister thing figured out, because, well, it's really hard to throw a baseball with a blistered finger.
That's it for this edition of BSS Sports. Make sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at BSS Sports. Archiving all of our works on YouTube at BSS Productions. For that guy, Trevor Struthers, and myself, Stephen Schill, we'll catch you next Monday.